All right, so this week's exercises all deal with the pen tool. So we're just going to go right to week 2, the first one, and the top file is the file that you want to download. When we click on it, it opens up right in Illustrator. And there are 3 pages to this because they've made the exercises a little bit larger so you can see them. And if you hold down the space bar, you can pan between the pages. The template, all that stuff in the background is on that template layer. We're not going to really need to use it too much except to turn it on and off occasionally. And what this is this is going to train you in the various ways that the pen tool works. All right, so it's got a couple of icons up here that show you how the pen tool can change how it looks. So for example, if you're hovering over an anchor point, you can, or I'm sorry, if you're hovering over a path, you can add an anchor point and it'll have a little plus sign there. If you're hovering over an already existing anchor point, it thinks you want to delete it. Also, the pen with the little circle next to it means you're closing a path, or you can continue a path that you've already started. And a couple of other cursors that I will mention along the way. Also, I'm not going to walk through all of these because some of them don't have anything new. They're just kind of showing you new ways to use them. But a few things. Whenever you see a blue circle, it means you click there. You might click and drag or something like that, but you're definitely going to be clicking anywhere where there's a blue circle. And a red circle is where you drag the handle to. You never click there, right? So you're always, if you click here and then drag, you're going to get this handle that you want to get the curve that you want. And then the green circles are going to be where you drag handles to. So if you drag out a handle, you can always press a button and then move it in order to break the tangent. I'll get to what that means when we get there. So the first one is very simple for those of you that already used the pen tool, which is over here in the toolbox. It looks like a pen. You've done this before. If you click without dragging, you get straight lines. And I can already tell that there's a fill on this, and I hate that, so we're going to turn the fill off. You want to make sure there's just the line there because it's a little bit easier to work with. All right, so if you just click, you get straight lines, no curves to them. Now, if you click while holding down Shift, it constrains it to, I believe, 45-degree points. All right, so if I hold down Shift on the straight parts and then let go for these curves, or for the angles, which are not at 45 degrees, and then hold down Shift, and then click, and then hold down Shift, right, you can get straighter lines for the flat lines. And then I can come up to the end here, and if I hover over the original anchor point, I see a circle next to my pen cursor. I click that, and it closes the line. And if I click off of it, I can kind of see it. And you can see that, actually, I didn't do too bad a job of getting these to be flat, but you can, if you've used this for a while, they'll turn out straight, but holding down Shift will help you out a lot. And so a lot of the things in here will say hold down Shift while you're dragging the handle, or hold down Shift while you're clicking to constrain directions. One thing you're going to notice, by the way, is that this is kind of hard to see where the pen tool was working. If I go back to the pen tool, you can see that there's a preview, but it's yellow. And that's because the layer is, when we created a new layer for this, it was yellow. If you're working on a dark background, that's great. When you're working on a light background, that's terrible. So what you can do is you can double click on the layer itself, not the word, just somewhere in the blank space after the word that names the layer. And it brings up your layer options. And you can see there's a swatch right here. And if you click on that swatch, you can choose another better color. So in class, I was working with like dark blues and purples because then you can actually see what you are doing. See how much better that is? All right, so I'm going to delete that. Or, I'm sorry, backspace. Backspace gets rid of the whole thing. Delete just gets rid of one section. So you want to make sure you change that color of that layer so that you can see the previews better. You want your actual pen line to be a darker color too, just so you can see it against the white background and against all these little dots here. And you want to make sure there's no fill. It defaults to having a fill on it, but this white swatch with the red through it means none. And you want to do that to make sure that you can see what you're doing. All right, so next up we have curved lines, simple curved lines. So remember, you click on blue and drag to red. So if I click on blue and drag to red, I get this handle. I'm drawing out the handle. And the line is going to be curved, again, click and drag, as much as that handle tells it to be. So you can see that it curved that much because these handles are pulled out that far. See my preview? It's following me around. So you just click and drag and you follow these numbers. And you can see, if I hold on the space bar, I can move down. As we go down, the red numbers, the red dots, are just as far away from the blue dots all the way. It's the same distance. Whoops, too far. Hit escape to get out of the path, by the way. But the line looks like really tight here. What's happening is where you click is getting further and further apart. And so you get a sort of flatter dome, even for the same handle length, basically. If you want to ever change anything, sub-selection tool, which is the right hand of your two cursors, or A from your keyboard. If I want this bottom one to be as sort of pointed looking as that top one, there we go, then I have to pull those handles way out, because the further apart these are, the more distance you're covering, the less influence the handles have on it, relatively speaking. So even though it's the same handle size for each of these curves, when the curves get bigger, it changes the shape. So just to be aware that those two things are working in concert, both how far apart your anchor points are and how long the handles are. Another thing is, it does say to hold down Shift. If you're careful and you have snapping to points turned on, you should get it pretty straight. If you are uncertain about, where you're clicking, by all means hold down Shift and you'll get flat lines. And those flat tangents are what will allow you to have this very even looking curve. We're not going to do that one. So, whoops, sorry about that. I'm trying to zoom in the Maya way instead of the Adobe way. There we go. So next up, now we have an uneven curve. Instead of just swishing back and forth, this comes into points. So what we need to do is basically have two different kinds of tangent. Well, actually, no, we have a broken tangent. That's what's going on. So what we're going to do is, you draw the first curve, and it says, click and release. So you just click to, draw the curve. And then you can press on the anchor point to create a new handle for the new arch. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to do it the old way first. So if I click and I drag there to release, so I get the, arch. And you can see that it draws the arch you want it to. But then if I click and do this, right? It creates a handle on both sides, and it's even, it's unbroken, it's at 180 degrees, right? It's going from here down to here. That's actually not what I want. So we're going to undo, go back to my pen tool. So if I click and drag here, and then I follow the directions, I click and release, right? And then if I don't move my mouse, you can see the cursor has a little like caret next to it. And if I click and pull that, it's only making the new handle on this right hand side. The other handle still exists over here automatically. On this new one, there is a handle, if I click, that exists here automatically. You just don't see it right now. If I was to just click here and drag all in one stroke, it would move that handle. But if I click once to make the anchor point and then click again to draw the new handle, that's how I can get that pointed look. So you're clicking twice in the same area. All right, you're going to do that a lot in these exercises. You're going to end up clicking twice on the same circle. And this is another key to this. You really want to make sure you're reading these directions. All right, so what would be... All right, so that's one way to do that. Here, excuse me, here is another way. So if I click and drag, right, I've got a nice curve there. And then I click and drag. This is starting off just like the second one. All right, so you drag to there and you release. Now, I have a handle that's over here. I want it to stay there. But I need this handle to go over here. How do I do that? Well, if I hold down Alt, and if I hover over the handle, I see a whole caret. Not the cursor with a caret next to it, but just a caret. And if I click and drag, okay, nothing happens. Huh. Let's try that again. Ah, it broke. I must have clicked something accidentally. Let's try that again. That happens sometimes where the line will break and so you're no longer continuing it, so it doesn't want to listen. Click and drag and release. Hold down Alt. There it is. It's obvious. If you don't see this line swinging back and forth, then it's not working. Click and drag that over there. And then I can draw the new line by clicking and dragging. And I let go. And I hold down Alt. Ah, I missed again. There we go. And now, see, it broke. That's interesting. If I want to continue this, I can click. I might have to fix something afterwards, but I can click on this edge right here and drag out like that and drag that out to here. So I'm basically doing what I did at the top. And I should have listened and dragged that out further because I wasn't paying attention. There we go. Click and drag to here. Let go. Hold down Alt. Oh boy. There it is. Swing this out here. I wonder if it's going to cut me off again. Yep. So, very common. So you just continue. Whoops. Click and drag in order to restart the line, kind of redraw the handle, and bring this out to here. And you can see this last one, it's a bit of a wrong dot. If you want it to match the shape, you should put it there. And frankly, the same with some of these other dots. They're in the wrong spot. So if I click on this, it's because I had to redraw it. There we go. Whenever you click on an anchor point, you get the handles for that anchor point. So you can see that this one has two handles. They're different lengths because this is not as tall as this arc. Whereas this one has two that are about the same size, and they are right on top of each other. The other thing you get, if you click on an anchor point, you get the two handles for that anchor point, and you also get the handles that are for the anchor points right next to it, but only the one that affects the arc. So you're basically getting all the handles you need to affect the two arcs that that anchor point is on. Alright, and I think this is the last one I'll show you on this document, but this one's a little bit confusing, but what's happening is we're trying to get a curve line and then a straight line and then a curve line and then a straight line. So you need points where it's a curved tangent coming in but then a linear tangent. That's what we mean by straight lines. A linear tangent leaving. So in order to get a curved line, we click and then we drag, and then you'll see it says click and press hold down shift key, meaning we want a straight line. So that's what that means. So we just click, hold down shift to get a perfectly straight line, and we drag down to here. And now then you're going to click on the same anchor point, and it's going to be hard to see. I can zoom in as much as I want, but these dots do not get any bigger, so you really need to have your glasses on if you need them. And you can see right in here, if I hover over the right spot, the anchor point gets bigger. It highlights and it turns like to a bigger square. And I'm just going to single click. No click and drag, right? That's how you get curved lines. Straight lines, you just click, click, click. So I single clicked here once, I'll hold down shift to get a straight line, and I'll single click there once, and then while still over the same anchor point, I'm going to click and drag. And that's how I now get this curved line. So it's your every other anchor point, it's click and drag, and then click, and then the next one is click, and then click and drag. You're alternating back and forth, but you will be clicking on all of these blue numbers twice. That's the only way you're going to get it, because you have to tell it two different things. The incoming tangent is different than the outcoming tangent. And the shift is just to constrain proportions. If you feel confused by that and would rather not hold down shift all these times, it's not going to break anything. There we go. And hold on escape. So this is one where you really have to look at the directions. It's either click and release or click and then drag. If it's saying press, that only refers to your keyboard keys for Alt and Shift and things like that. So you don't need to ever, if it says press, that's not referring to your mouse. Oh, I lied. There is one more I want to show you. This one is just a combination of all the various things that you've seen so far. So you're breaking tangents and using shift and all the different things. Every single red dot in here, this is the directions. Drag to here, release, and hold down the option key to break the tangent and bring it over here. So that they just didn't want to write this 12 times. Also, on this one, please don't get confused. They counted wrong. The number 17 is here twice. So you can tell it's click here, drag here, break to that. Click here, drag here, break to that. You can, or I'm sorry, click here, let's see, click here, drag here, break to that, and then click here, drag here, break to that. You can kind of see the obvious pattern, but just be aware that there's a wrong number in there. I think there's also a wrong number in this one. But this one is pretty cool, and I'm going to show you actually what the finished one is, so you can take a look at it here. What this is doing is, this is a line that I'm going to make a darker color so we can see it for a second. There we go. So it looks like it's just an ink line, right? Like a calligraphy line. But I've spoken before in earlier lectures about the fact that certain things that the computer does, like putting beveled edges on one of your, the borders on a rectangle, or if I draw a rectangle, that needs to be, and I give it non-uniform lines, right? So you can do this. I can't control how that, how wide that line gets, or how narrow it gets, or if it's going to swoop in and out multiple times. I can't control that. There's all procedural. Whenever the computer figures something out, it's procedural. If the computer figures out just how to bevel the edge, I can't change that. I'm stuck with that beveled edge. I can't make it more beveled. I can't make it less beveled. And there will be times when you need something that resembles a line stroke, like this, but technically, if I select it, it's not a line. It's actually a shape. And I know this because these blue marks right here are going along the outside of the shape. And if I click on an anchor point, I've got tangents here, right? There we go. Handles and handles. And there's technically only 4 anchor points, which is why the directions have so many directions, because getting this with only 4 anchor points is a little bit of a challenge. But you need to know how to do stuff like that in order to control it. So go back to my working layer, go back to my pen tool. It's a little tricky, but it's worth knowing how to do. So we click, and then we drag here to release. Step 1, easy. Step 3, click here, drag to here, and you can release it. Now, if you hold down the control key, you see you get this new handle. It's like a selection or sub-selection tool. I can click that, and I can drag this handle to make it longer than this handle. That's all that's doing, is it's making one handle longer than the other, so you can get 2 different shaped curves. And let's see, then I need to go out to here, click and press on 7, and then drag to 8. And then without moving my mouse, I let go, but I hold down Alt, I get the new cursor, and I break the tangent down to 9. Now I'm going to pause right here and say a couple of things. If you get things a little bit messed up, there's 2 things to keep in mind. 1, you can always fix it afterwards. And 2, you may be better off restarting it. If things get really broken, don't worry about if you have to restart it. That doesn't mean bad things. Another thing is that you'll notice when you first click on the blue line, the curve is in completely the wrong spot. You have to click and drag to where it told you to. And I hold down Command and I drag this further. And you can see it's actually still not in the right spot yet. I can fix that afterwards. Let's see. I did it backwards. I should have dragged to 11. I wasn't paying attention. Let go, and then hold down Control and that's interesting. Undo. Click and drag to 11. You know? This is being stubborn. There it is. Drag it down to 12. There we go. Because one side of the curve is shorter than the other. And I'll need to click on this anchor point in order to get that started again. There it is. And then 13 and drag to not 14 because they miscounted. 16 is the last one. So you're not missing 14 or 15, they just screwed up. And try to, yeah, there we go. Click on the original anchor point. And I messed things up a little bit, which is okay. Hold down Alt Option. There we go. See, you're going to have to read the directions because even I can't remember them exactly as they are. Worst case scenario, you grab your subselection tool and you start fixing things. Right? You can always change these points around. You can always move them. Also, don't feel the need to go way in here and make sure they're so matching exactly. We're looking for the general idea, not for some super precision. All right, but there's a total of 2, 4, 6, 8 exercises. They shouldn't take you too long, and they're very, very technical, but these are a lot of pen skills that you might need if you ever want to use this tool and create the complex shapes you see that are vectors. And make sure when you're done, and even before you're done, quite often you save. And there's no space for it on here, but I really need you guys to always put your name on these, right? Even if you're, there we go. Your name's got to be somewhere on here so I can figure out that it's yours. Then we save and we move on to the next exercise.